On this side.
I'll start with a little warm white, and it's almost like a wet coat. I'm not concerned if it stays wet. I'm going to go and do a section at a time. By that I mean part of a tree. If I go over the edge, that doesn't matter because it just wipes right off. You don't want it to start as if you're in from the edge. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I'll just put in some of that. There's another little flicky. And then I might pick up a little of the one color, so we've got a bit of driftwood. And I'll come in like so. At any time, see, I can take some warm white and calm down an area if I have heavier than I want. I'll pick up a little bit of slate gray. I am scrunching my brush on the palette. Just to calm down that gray. And again, we're not concerned about coming off the edge. Look how easily it wipes off now, but I'm not concerned about even going back and doing that. Just a damp Q-tip afterwards will take that off. So you see how we just come back and forth and streak these colors. Now I'll get a little bit of the, scrunch that out, the dove gray. That's a little beigeier. I don't even have my warm white up here as my wet coat. Now I do want to see scratchies, but our whole main part to this, do you see that I'm curving? Okay, I'm giving a little bit of a curve. That's going to make our tree look like it's rounded. So I'll come back here and there with white. The whole thing is the birch trees are very dirty. You think of them as white because they stand out white in the woods, but it's against all the other green trees, right? This piece here that's off the edge, you're going to curve that as well. So I'll take a little bit. I could have used my 3/4 down there, but you're going to curve this piece that comes off the edge. And you're not having to really press with all this, okay? So I'm just using the tip of the brush. It has those scratchy bristles. That's the important part. So, and you can use your 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch to do the piece over there as well. Okay. So we're going to nice and softly, so the bigger the brush, the better it is for you. I'm going with a 1 inch. And I'm going to shade. And then you can just take your finger and smudge nice and softly so it'll unevenly pull it in. But do you see the difference already? And like we talked like how we can clean up our outer edges afterwards. So nice and softly, I'll get to there. Just smudge. I'm not smudging absolutely every spot that we did. I should have shaded the outside of my bark first, because now if I go here, I'm going to wipe that off. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that was a lesson for you guys. That's why I did it like that. So right now, right here, I can shade. I've got to reload. Reload. And when you're shading with a big brush, you use a lot of palette paper. So make sure you have space. Can't see what this is here. Okay, this is a straight down. See how that smudge works? Mm-hmm. Nice. And then we'll come down here. Hold. blend, 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 blend. I've still got to make sure I'm not getting paint on the water part of my brush, right? So I got to come down here. And then I'm going to also come, this is where I did it right. So you see I was able to shade on the outer part of the bark. At the same time I'm able to, and when I'm smudging I got to make sure that I'm smudging the direction that I pulled my underneath stuff with. Make sense? I think I need this to be a little heavier. And it's good it's good that we're smudging it, so it doesn't really matter if it's even. See how nice that looks? So, and now this might be dry enough that I can come here, because that's what's bugging me. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna pop up the white in here by I have it thinned a smidge, and I'm just coming back in with some warm white and just scratch a little here and there. Some can come from the edge, but it's mostly in the middle. That's going to end up making our tree round more, which is what we like. So you see, you can already see the white popping up there. Don't press hard. Little scratchies of white is what we're looking for. I can turn my brush on the side. But you can see the difference now from the bottom to the top of the tree. I can scratch from the edge of her bark there as well. But it's not everywhere. You're not looking to completely drown out what we've done. We just want to pop up a little bit more white here and there. That's that. Paint whenever you're using a liner. And we're going to pull some lines. So as it dries out, thin a bit more. And remember our curved direction, right? We're going to follow those. Do you see how the difference even just that has began to make? And you can bring a couple in that as well, because there are lines in that bark. I just don't want it to look the same anywhere. And then at some point we're going to go back. Metis, this needs to be shaded here next to the, but even just this, do you see the line difference that this is making? And then I'm going to take and I'm going to mix some bittersweet into some neutral gray. Again, this is going to be thinned down. And it's going to bring in some brownish lines. And do you see that that even makes your white whiter?
Makes quite a difference.
So it's just nice and thinned down. We're going to bring in these markings. And I'll bring some of the brown ones where I have brought the gray on this side pieces of bark. I'm not sure with this one if this piece has a like a bit of a curve up in here that's shaded afterwards, so I just want to imply that. There we go. And a little bit more in here. It is the inside of the bark, but you still see those lines. So, all right, that's our mission. I'm going to shade down the sides.
What color was that again,
Of
Wendy?
this with burnt umber.
Okay.
I can't remember, does it come to a, yeah it does. So I'll walk that out, and while that is drying, so I can do the other side, I will go right now and I'll shade inside these curls. Walk it out. And walk that out. Same thing on this. Now this one bends. So I shade there, flip it around. Okay? And then Maurice, you have that one to do in there.
Okay.
So while these are drying now, this may be dry enough. And I come down the other side. Walk it out. And this one, we come down and we shade with milk chocolate. And it just fades off towards there, okay? He's a bit wider, so I'm hoping I can get away with doing both sides, not wiping off the other shading. More paint. Now we will be shading all of this in the end with some darker, so don't panic if you're thinking, oh, it's looking not as dark as the picture. You can tell that it is going to be strengthened up. All right? So, yeah, and also I may as well come back here while this is dry and show you with the burnt umber once this is dry. Pardon me. I come back here towards the tree. Okay? This one I'll do a bit more, walk them out a bit more. You like to wait till it's drier to walk it out a bit more so that you have, all right? We're going to shade bittersweet up the sides of the branches. We want to darken these branches. This is going to make the branches appear rounder. So we want it to come out nice and far, nice and soft. Don't press, that's the key. Don't press on the branch, on the brush, pardon me. Don't press, you don't press on the branch either. But don't press on your brush. That will softly float and let your color. You see how I'll sweep back and forth. So you see how this has rounded the branch. Then I'm going to take my liner and I'm going to add more of these lines. The branches tend to have more lines than the big tree trunk does. So we'll put those on, and you're also going to come in and put a few in camel. So it's bittersweet, and we want it to come out nice and far. And that's what's great about this compared to working on a painted surface, is we don't have to worry about outside pass there, because it'll just wipe right off afterwards for us. Like that, anything out on the glass, it's gone. So that just makes it a lot easier and quicker for us. All right, that's good. So I shaded here and there on the branches, just a couple of places with black brown. Now I'm taking black brown on my 1/2-inch lunar blender, and I'm going to scratch in a couple and come right off the glass. You're not concerned, but do you see that it's not in the same place, all of them? This is going to round these branches nicely. See how every single little step we do makes such a difference. It's thinned a little bit. It's not like super washy, but it allows me to get that thin, scratchy, like as if we did it with a million little liners, right? So we scratch these in here. It gives us such a nice difference to our branches. I'll pull some from behind my window here. So do you see how that has really changed our branch? Okay, so you're going to go for that now. Soft down the side of our tree. Do you have a mop?
I wouldn't have think. Here, yours is out.
Thank you. And you always go like that with the mop when you're doing a nice big float, so that it doesn't give you a track mark. Nice and soft. This is going to help to round our tree. And I'm going to come all the way down the back of this bark. We will be shading on the other side of that, but it's always better to do the outside part first. Nice and soft. I'm using the 1-inch brush. It allows me to have a little more moisture on the brush so that my float will come out nice and soft instead of that trim look. We don't want to have a trim look. So that is again curving our bark and our tree. So I've gone now behind the piece of bark right here where my bark has come out on the tree. And I soften again with the mop. You see how that takes care of that edge that you have there a lot of times when you shade. Now I'm going to shade on this bark, but I would use a smaller brush to do that. Shade nice and soft on there and on there. That one's all good, he's all good. So I can strengthen this shading up because this is bittersweet. And then we'll do the next tree the same way. So we're going to do a branch. So I'm going to side load khaki tan. Which one's khaki tan?
Khaki's up here.
I thought. Okay, thank you. And we're gonna just kind of come, it's almost on the chisel, and shade down the branch. It doesn't have to be right at the edge. Do you see how I'm coming in here? So we've got that float on there, and then I'm going to pick up a little of the driftwood. You can do a little on your liner, or you can on your chisel, or you can take a liner, it doesn't matter. And you're going to just swipe a highlight here and there. It's not everywhere. And then we take our lunar blender. I don't want to wreck the nice liner. We take our lunar blender and we're taking our black brown and we scrunch. Now you know how we came in on these branches up here. We do the same thing on here. Come from this side, this side. So what's going to happen is we're going to have these little marks on here that end up looking, the light marks become, it's hard on a skinny section. You might make a 1/4 inch or something in there. Too thin. So you see how you don't end up seeing all of that light anymore. It becomes light through the dark scratchies. Okay, now where I have come off my edge, all I would do is come right along the edge with my chisel and clean that up. Not that that's going to happen to you guys, but he's so skinny there. But that's how I get out of that mess. Just clean up the edge like so. But do you see how now we just have, we'll get rid of all these later on, but you've got these little black lines that wrap around it, and they really make the branch look realistic. It works well. So that's what we'll do to these branches, and then go. This is not in our notes, but we want to bring a bit more. Some milk chocolate, and that would be right after, but it's got to be dry. When we did the warm white, the neutral gray, and driftwood, or slate gray I think it was, whatever grays we did in the beginning that we scratched our bark. After we had to dry it and then do this, and I somehow haven't got it in our notes, but it's important. It has a nice dirty tone to the bark. Do you see the and again, I'm following the direction of my twists and curves on the branches, okay, on the trunk. That's all, folks. On the trunk. Okay, so that changes it quite a bit. Gosh, I don't. So we're going to be shading on our leaves. We're going to come and shade along the bottom because this is a flipped leaf. Then we'll come back and shade next to the flip. So you always start from the back and come forward. And now for these guys, I'm just going to take a look at the picture here. Okay, this guy's in behind. So we'll just shade like so to walk that out. The other ones, this one has a flip, so I should shade along the back of his flip first. Shade along the back, then shade in front to create it. Do you see how that does that? Then we've got a shade down the middle of each leaf. Now, where we have done the other ones, you have to make sure that you're letting it dry. So I can't do this one until this is dried enough. And we'll go back and do in the middle of all those. So once they're dry, we can go back and do our veins. We're going to do the veins in the thinned, with our liner, we're going to do our veins with our thinned burnt umber, and then we're going to add some in thinned bittersweet as well. So you just don't want them to look the very same. You don't want them to be automatically across from each other. And when you have a leaf that's flipped, a lot of times you'll have the vein coming up. So we've got that coming down the middle, even though I haven't. And then I'm going to thin down some bittersweet and do a couple more. We will be strengthening our shading with bittersweet too. I've got a water drop running down there. We'll strengthen our shading with bittersweet too, but a couple of our veins we'll do in that, but you're not redoing each one. You're just going to add a couple in the bittersweet. It doesn't have to be every one. So just strengthen up a couple. It's just to give more drama to the leaf. So once they're dry, we'll repeat with the bittersweet, and then you go back later and strengthen here and there with our black brown. All right, that's that.
Okay, we're on.
So we're going to float a highlight, a camel, along the edge of the flips in a few places on our leaves. We're not wanting it to be super, we want it to fade out. And of course you can use your built-in mop. Come back a little that way. So that's on the flip, right? Here, we would want to be able to separate. Now I'm not pressing hard, that's the big key to the floating, but if I press hard, I'm going to get a trim looking line. Nice and soft. See how that's now lifting that leaf up on top of the other one. And on, say, the bottom, I'll just pick a few spots to do this. Don't go on the whole edge of the leaf. So you just kind of pick here and there. And then we can take a bit of sand, and it's just a tiny bit of sand, and I would use it on my dirty brush. The sand is going to be quite bright, and just a couple of spots. It just picks up a little bit of brighter. So that's all I would do with the sand. You're not looking to repeat everywhere with it. So maybe I would give a bit of sand here, and maybe a little bit of sand here. That's it. Like, you're not going to town and getting crazy with it. Is this a flip? Can't tell.
Yes.
Okay. So I would, you know, when we strengthened our bittersweet, the flips are really important to have that strengthening on. So now it's not a question, is it a flip? You know it is. So again, Then our camel. Nice and soft. Soften it a bit. All right, so you're gonna do that to your other leaves, and it's more here and there. Wherever you wanna lift it up off of something, that's what you do. Okay, so we're going to start with I'm gonna start with black brown. And we're gonna go for making these knots in around where our branch is coming from. So I want to have them that the branch is coming from it. So a little would be underneath. So you see how it's going to look like, you'll touch up your branch afterwards. So it's going to look like that. So we just kind of fade our way out. I'm going to take some of these spots where I'm just going to come from the edge. And I'm coming off the edge. You'll touch that up after, just give it a wipe. But I don't want it to look like it doesn't start, it's coming from wrapping around, right? We want that look. So this knotty piece is coming from the other side. So I just want it to gradually fade out. It's loose and rough. And we'll do, like I say, I'm going to kind of come back in here. I don't want your brush to be wet because that's going to thin down our black brown, and we don't want that. So we have that like that. I'm going to pick up a little bit of lamp black now, and I'll come in here. And I'm coming kind of like to the middle of this places we've brought. So not right out to the outside edge maybe. So that way it's the darkest in the center. And then I'll just pick up a little neutral gray and just kind of tap a little on that. That's basically a little bit of a highlight. Just in a few spots. It's not a lot. It just gives us a little bit of a highlight. Because those kind of build their way out. They stick out a bit, right? So we want to have a little, the highlight is actually showing us that that sticks out some. That they might be, so I'm just tipping my brush this way, that way. I'm not trying to make I want them to look like round highlight knots that are on there. So you're going to continue those. You'll bring a couple, where's one? Okay, one is kind of here, coming in. But this makes a huge difference in our piece. And you can make them, just try not to make them all look the very same. There could be a little tiny guy coming in, and you just don't want them to be identically across from each other as well. I'm just kind of making it dark around the edge. And remember, we'll just fix that up after. That'll come right off our glass. And I could have, like this is going to have another one at that branch, but you could have one, like say you felt like you wanted one right here. Sometimes we might do this picture and we have to extend the tree a little bit. So it wouldn't hurt just to have a little character, because you don't want to have a million branches, even though they do have so many branches. But you want to, and also like this one here, when we look here, there's going to be one that kind of comes up on here. I like this guy. And he comes down in the V there. And that's where these branches have come from, right? So this one here is very nice. I like this guy. But look at how pretty that looks. And then we'll come in the center with a little bit of black. And it's always going to be uneven. That's the whole big key to this. So now that this one's kind of dried up a bit, I was kind of taking time to do that. So now I have like black brown on here. I'm just going to come in around the outer edges and just dry brush a bit. We're not doing tons. Some people overdo it with that dry brush, but it's just to give a little bit of a dirty affect where it's coming from. So you'll see just a little dry brushing around these, you know, like there's one going to be here, but just a little bit. It's not, it's more in, so that you know, it's just a bit more of that, but it hasn't taken effect yet. That's about it. You're not looking to bring a whole round circle around there. Got it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's your next mission. All of the bellies the same way. I'm going to wet coat, warm white, and I'll go right into my cheek patch at this time too. I'm going to clean my brush out because I always find when I try to pick up, say, milk chocolate now, it's going to go very pale. So now I come from the bottom, and my wet coat is, turn the brush on the flat once I get it up a bit. Clean that out a bit, take white again. So you see how you'll work the two together. This, we're going to shade down there afterwards, so it's going to get darker, but if you're looking at your picture, you can see that there. So we want it the darkest down at the bottom, and then we want our warm white again to come back towards it. So this one's going to have been dried. I don't even know why I attempted that. So I'll wet coat that one. Wipe my brush. I'm not going to wash it out right now because I don't want it really, really dark here. It comes from this end of the cheek patch and it's very soft. There's not a lot, it's just a little. Okay, so that's what you're doing to each belly. All right, same. Black brown mix, and I scuffed it off on my paper towel. And this is how we sort of shade the bottoms of these. They're not shaded, it's just a dry brush scratch. Do you see how nice that does a job on them?
Well, yeah.
And that's the shading. You can bring a little bit from the back of the cheek. You don't want very much. Just a little bit there. Now, we're going to take neutral gray, and I'm going to scratch a highlight on the top of the head. I think I have, my brush was dirty still from black brown, so I kind of have to give it a second one. So I've got to scratch that highlight, and I'm just going to scratch a little bit on the beak as well. Scratch a little in the chest. This is the same way we did those birds
a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, on the window.
Down the bird feeder.
There, I'm getting enough on the top of the head that I like. See how it lightens it up there. So now we're going to be taking our 1/4 inch flat. I'm going to wash this, Meddies, so you can use it again. It doesn't take much for the lunar blenders to get the moisture out of them. They're not like our dry brushes. Okay, so now we're going to take our 1/4 inch and I'm going to double load number 6 with warm white and lamp black. I'm going to use your 1/4 inch, lamp black, warm white, flatten to the chisel. I don't think the brush was wet, but it feels like it was. Flatten to the chisel, and then we're going to come from the tail with the white out and the black up, and then we're going to come and bring in some wing feathers on the side of him. He's a sad one for you to be able to see it from because he's on the side. So I'll just go, this one here has more to show. I haven't done his top of his head, you can do that. Bringing up those tail, now I'm going to bring wing feathers. And if you feel after you think, oh, well, I wouldn't mind a little brighter on the bottom wing feather or so, just to pop it up a little bit, you go back and do that. These are nice and simple. There's not a lot to these birds, which is what we love. Mm-hmm. And then our eye is going to be the very same that we did on the other eyes. You bring the black down in the cheek, and he has black up there. So I always use neutral gray to do the outline on there. And it's a very fine outline along the top of the eye. Bottom is on the black, on the white, so you don't need that. Now I'm going to just pick up a bit of warm white on the dirty brush. I don't like my highlight to be too bright. Now we've got driftwood and all different other colors, but you can just brush mix it down, and you're going to put your highlight on there. You don't need a lot. You just want to the top and to the back, always on the eye, to the top and to the back. So that's your highlight. You can bring a line to strengthen up the separation in the beak. And you can also take some black and just bring a few lines. I don't want them to look like fine little teeth on a comb. They should be sometimes a bit chunky, if you know what I mean. So I press on the liner a bit. I don't want them to be perfect. So that's a little of that. And sometimes if you feel like, well, my black came down further than I want, you could bring white up. Or you can even do both. But it's not a lot to do the birds, but they are so effective. Mm-hmm. Okay.